In 2001, in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act, 40 documents were declassified in the United States, including a report from CIA departments titled Views on Trained Cats. This is how the public learned about a project with the codename Acoustic Kitty. With the help of these adorable feline creatures, CIA specialists aim to eavesdrop on and gather intelligence on all the secrets discussed by employees within the walls of the Soviet embassy in Washington and beyond. The project, codenamed Acoustic Kitty, was developed in the early 1960s with the aim of using cats as spies. The development would have enabled the eavesdropping on conversations of Soviet diplomats, particularly those taking place outside the Soviet embassy in Washington. Embassy personnel had a habit of discussing important matters while casually strolling along an alley or sitting on a bench in a nearby park. American intelligence agents could observe them well, but it was practically impossible to hear what they were talking about. The research conducted by the CIA during that time sometimes seems to border on madness. Americans were involved in a wide range of endeavors, from parapsychology and telekinesis to attempts to control the human mind. Psychological experiments, testing the effects of LSD, and even attempts to create a super soldier were not left unexplored. The choice of cats was not arbitrary. The CIA believed that these animals would attract the least suspicion, even when strolling right next to a person. After all, who doesn't love cats, right? That's when the brilliant idea struck the minds of the specialists at the Central Intelligence Agency. In their opinion, no agent would ever pay special attention to cats, which are known to roam everywhere. The idea arose to attach a microphone to the cat. The CIA and its technicians worked not only with cats, but also trained dolphins and birds. They particularly attempted to harness the abilities of North American crows. Americans were drawn to their trainability, and intelligence birds could recognize and classify objects, open desk drawers and cabinets, and even carry relatively large items. Bob Bailey, the director of the Dolphin Training Program and one of the participants in the project, recounted, "We found that we could train the cat to listen to voices. How we managed to do that, I have no idea." Therefore, there was no doubt about the success with cats. The new test subjects were incredibly adorable. After all, how could any diplomat suspect a domestic pet of being a cunning spy? According to various sources, a budget ranging from $15 to $25 million was allocated for the cat training program and the development of the eavesdropping device. In those times, that amount of money was simply enormous. In today's terms, this sum would be equivalent to approximately $140 million. The development of this covert project took place over a period of approximately 5 years. 2 CIA departments were involved in creating the specialized equipment and selecting the personnel. The main idea behind the intelligence operatives was that cats, whether willingly or inadvertently, almost always listen to human voices. Therefore, besides the technological aspect, the key task was to train the cats to approach unfamiliar people, stay near them for a certain period of time, and then leave upon command. Victor Marchetti, the assistant director of the CIA during those years, recounted, "The idea was to make the operation, implanting the listening device. We created a monster. However, the monster was still an ordinary cat if you didn't look closely. Whiskers, paws, and tail were where they needed to be." Since cats were intended to be used for eavesdropping on people, one of the tasks was to develop a small microphone, a small power source, a small radio transmitter, and an antenna capable of transmitting signals over long distances. The most convenient location for implanting the microphone was chosen to be the ear canal. The transmitter was positioned at the base of the skull, around the neck. The antenna, made of the thinnest wire to remain inconspicuous in the fur, was attached beneath the animal's skin along the spine. This part of the design could be considered the most successful, as holding the tail proudly raised is a habit of all cats. Therefore, according to the developers' recollections, the tail was an ideal antenna. The challenge lay in creating a battery of appropriate size and runtime. Even with substantial budgets, the task could not be fully resolved, resulting in the limitation that the cat could only engage in espionage for a limited amount of time. To make such a cyborg, the surgeon implanting all the devices would take no more than an hour. But installing a microphone and an antenna is one thing. Making a cat think it's a super agent is another. It took much longer to train the animal than it did to operate to turn it into a cyborg. In the room, when she was alone with her trainer, the cat behaved quite predictably and obeyed commands precisely. But once outside, according to CIA reports, the cat's behavior became uncontrollable. At the most important moment, the cats would yawn, turn away, and ignore the trainer's commands. They were interested in anything from a blade of grass swaying in the wind to a chirping bird or a dry poplar leaf flying on the ground, but not in the scientist's commands. The big problem was the feeling of hunger. Later, scouts who spoke of the program even pointed out that the CIA veterinarians had to intervene surgically in the cat's body to eliminate the hunger. No one specified what was done, but Marchetti once said that the cat wouldn't have lived long anyway. Nevertheless, with a carrot and a stick, some success was achieved. The cat was controlled by ultrasound and taught to move left, right, and straight ahead. The idea was to have several spies, but the CIA decided to start the experiment with one adult cat. For a long time, she was trained, educated, and prepared like a real James Bond. Finally, with great difficulty, the cat was sufficiently trained to be entrusted with a responsible mission. In 1966, Operation Acoustic Kitty approached operational testing. A park near the Soviet Embassy in Washington, D.C. on Wisconsin Avenue was chosen to test the operated cat. The task was quite simple. The animal was to be taken to the park in an equipped CIA staff van and released. On a signal, the cat would walk up to two Soviet embassy employees who were walking along the park lanes, hang out with them, eavesdrop on their conversation, and then return to the van. It would seem that the animal had no super task, yet the cat not only managed to fail, but also put a damper on the entire program. The CIA staff had the perfect plan of action, all the necessary equipment, and an almost genius cat, but their experiment was ruined in an instant by a completely unexpected factor. The plan failed at the initial stage. When they drove up to the park to drop the cat off not far from the men who were already sitting on the bench, the cat was frightened by the loud sounds of the city and the bright lights. Instead of running to the park, it ran across the street from the park and was instantly run over by a passing taxi, killed instantly. It was a failure. Victor Marchetti would later describe it vividly. And here they sit in their high-tech van, loaded with expensive equipment, staring blankly at all the dials, and they have nothing on their hands but a dead cat, the result of 6 years of research. CIA agents immediately detained the taxi driver who ran over the test cat and subjected him to a number of interrogations. They seriously believed he was a Soviet spy who had destroyed a top-secret American development. But later they realized that he was just a frightened driver who had no idea about the cat, the Soviets, or the CIA's secret designs. The taxi driver had to be released, and the program closed in 1967 when the intelligence agency finally realized that it would not work. All subsequent tests by the CIA with new spy cats were also unsuccessful. Other acoustic kitties, having undergone no less intensive training, refused to become spies. They went in any direction but the one required by their mentors, and it looked like they didn't care about national security. That's not to say that the money was completely wasted, since technology was not advanced enough in those days, and all radio technology was quite cumbersome, so the lion's share of the budget went to developing microscopic devices. The equipment was more than likely used in other subsequent projects. We are used to thinking of intelligence agencies, including the CIA, as structures employing exceptionally intelligent and well-trained people. Failures happen to everyone, of course, but outright stupidity is not tolerated there. It turns out that all sorts of things happen. The technical geniuses at the CIA, who designed a recording and transmitting device so portable that it was invisible on a cat, did not take into account one little detail that Kipling wrote about: the cat that walked by himself.